Hi guys, hope you're all well. I wanted to do a post on how I overcame an injury in the form of a slip disc. So I had what was diagnosed as a protruding disc in my L5S1, which is essentially a slip disc in my lower spine in simple terms. For some background purposes, I had two children in a very short space of time. I had Betsy in December 2013. And then literally a year later, I fell pregnant with Ava, and she was born at the beginning of August in 2015. So there's literally 19 months between the two of them. So after Ava, I actually felt really good after the birth. Literally about a week after the birth, I felt normal. So after 3 weeks, I was back training in a short space of time. In hindsight, it was probably a bit soon. When I say I was back training, I started off with the Beachbody program PIO. Because it's all about core work and flexibility, and it's no impact whatsoever. So I wanted to come back in with that because I was very aware of the fact that there was still all the relaxing in my body from having a baby. So I did experience quite a lot of pelvic pain and back pain post baby number 2. I kind of put it down to the fact that I had a toddler who was 19 months old that I was lugging around. I'd been lugging her around, and she was a big girl, my first baby. She was a chunk. I was lugging her around, through a pregnancy. I then had baby number 2. I was lugging her around. I was lugging a car seat around, and I kind of just put it down to all of that. But it did get to the point where I was in a lot of pain. And it was more, I was fine when I was moving, but it was more when I went from sitting down to standing up and certain positions and things like that. So I went to see an osteopath, and actually I had some postnatal pelvic problems. So my pelvis was twisted anyway from the birth of baby number 1, and that was where she was born through forceps. I'm a very petite person. I'm only 5'4". So, in terms of having 2 children, my babies are only £6.7 and £5.12, so they weren't very big. But I just obviously have a very small pelvis, and they struggled to get out. So the first one was pulled out with forceps, and that caused some problems with my pelvis and my hips. So this sort of continued on post-birth of baby number 2, and I had all of those problems resolved over time through seeing an osteopath, which was brilliant. And that's just for future reference for anyone in the local area. It's Hearts Osteopathy in St Albans. The practitioner is called Jo Day, and she's absolutely fantastic for anyone sort of pre or postnatal. She specialises with pregnant women. So she sorted out my problems from childbirth, and I was then back into full training in terms of HIIT, running, weights down the line, and I embarked on doing several weight-based programs again from Beachbody. I think I did post Ava, I did PIO to start with, and then I did T25. I did a bit of P90X3, and then I went into 21 Day Fix Extreme, which was an awesome program. There was one day, it was November the 11th, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I was training, I was doing a move, which again, I probably was lifting a bit heavy for, but I was holding a weight, and I did a side squat. Then you hop over to the opposite side and you reach. So the move kind of was like this whilst you were squatting and reaching. And I remember in the back right bottom side of my back, just feeling the tiniest of pops. And I just went, oh. And literally with that, I was almost paralysed is probably a bit extreme, but I literally couldn't move. And I was like, oh, okay. Me being me, thinking I'm superwoman and nothing can stop me training because I've done it all my life, and I'm me and I'm strong and I'm fit and up here it's all fine. I carried on, and actually I had to stop the workout because I quite literally couldn't move. So that should have been alarm bells for me. But again, thinking you know better, and I do know better, and I should have known better, and I should have stopped, but I didn't. I carried on training all the time. Again, it was kind of at the point where when I was moving, I was fine. When I was sitting down to standing up, I was getting into certain positions, and it was just not very pleasant at all. So this went on for a period of weeks. I remember being completely stupid and doing bent over rows and my back just not being able to take it, but I was ignoring the pain and just carrying on. So it got to Christmas 2016, and I'm not joking when I tell you that I literally couldn't walk. So that was it, kibosh with the training, as I knew it, for the foreseeable future. Back in with the osteopath. I'd been to see her at the end of November, and she kind of got me by. But by the Christmas, again, as I just said, I couldn't walk. So back in with her. We knew then that there was, you know, a problem. But she said to me, "You're displaying some symptoms of a disc problem, but then others you're not, and you're training," and none of it made sense. So I booked in with her. I was seeing her regularly, weekly, and I also decided to book in with a podiatrist. So I went to the Walkwell Clinic in Stevenage, where there is a podiatrist based there. She did some work on me and said what I already knew, that around my pelvis and hips, the fascia, which is, imagine you've got a joint of beef and it has that sort of see-through skin on top that's kind of a bit stringy when you pull it. That's what our fascia is like, but obviously a lot tougher. And she knew from all of the movement assessment that she did with me that my fascia was just so tight around my hips and pelvis. And she prescribed me orthotics, and she prescribed me some mobilizers to do before I train. Now, that's worth me mentioning as well. I went back to work after having Ava in September 2016. And for me, I continued training in the mornings, but I was getting up and getting the workout done. I never took any time to mobilise and warm myself up, and that was a massive mistake, because that's how and why I ended up getting injured, and I never stretched properly afterwards. And again, it comes down to the fact that I know better, but I just didn't do it because I was rushing through everything to get the workout done. So I went to see this podiatrist. She prescribed me orthotics, which was specific to me, and they have been brilliant. I wear them ever since. And she said to me as well, "What trainers do you wear?" Now, again, being in the fitness industry, I had millions of pairs of trainers in different colours, and I wore different trainers dependent on what gym kit I was wearing that day. And she said, "No, big mistake. You should be wearing a neutral shoe and one pair of trainers at all times, because otherwise your pelvis doesn't know what position it should be in." Hold on 1 minute. Hey, Boo, what's the matter?
I want my apple. Where is the sweet?
Okay, that's fine. Where is it?
Up there.
Okay, bear with me, sorry.
Bear with me, sorry.
No, off you go. Thank you.
Me, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so sorry about that, mum life. She said to me, "You need to wear one pair of trainers, because otherwise, if you're switching the trainers that you're wearing all of the time, your body position is continually changing, and your pelvis doesn't know where it's at, and it can't stabilise, whether it's when you're walking around, whether that's when you're training." So coupled, when I had that discussion with my osteopath was in complete agreement with the podiatrist, and it even got to the point where I had to wear trainers for work. So this all happened around December 2016. So for about 6 weeks after that, I was in trainers every day for work with my orthotics. I was having weekly treatment with the osteopath, and that was to realign me properly, because I'd completely fallen out of alignment again. I was having, during those osteopathic treatments, I was having acupuncture, because my muscles around my spine and hips had just gone into complete spasm, and I was in a lot of pain, to the point where I'm not even the sort of person that takes tablets if I have a headache. I just don't do it. It doesn't fit with my lifestyle. I drink enough water. I drink sort of 2.5 to 3 litres of water a day, so actually I don't really suffer from headaches. But it got to the point where I remember at the beginning of January, actually around this time last year, I was lifting Ava into her cot, and I couldn't even bend over the cot to put my baby in the cot. I just felt my back and my spine collapse. And I remember getting the girls dressed before I was dropping them at nursery, before I went to work, and I was literally crying in pain. And so with that, I phoned the doctors. So I went to the doctors and I said, "I've seen a podiatrist, I've seen an osteopath, and this is what they think. They've given me all of these things to do." But it's at the point where I can't even look after my children, in the sense of get them dressed or put them in their bed without my back collapsing, you know. So with that, I was then referred to for an MRI scan. So I'll pause on that at the moment until the MRI scan, because as you know, these things with the NHS take quite a lot of time. So I continued with my osteopathic treatment, and my osteopath was very pro me continuing to train. Now, because of the background that I come from, I was with her on that, and I very much agreed with the fact that I should still keep moving, should still be moving. Now, quite a lot of people that don't have the knowledge around health and exercise and training and the skeletal system and all of that would say to me, why are you training? You've hurt your back. Why are you training? Why are you training? Well, training comes in many, many different forms. So I stopped training as I knew it and as I enjoyed. I stopped weight training. I stopped doing my HIIT, and I was very miserable for not being able to do that. However, I was very grateful for what I could continue to do. So, for example, Pio came back out of the closet. Now, there were some workouts within that I couldn't do, but there was one workout that was a very core-based workout that I could do. I enrolled to a Pilates class because when you have back problems, it's really, really important that your core is working properly to support your hips, to support your spine, to support your movement. I enrolled in a Pilates class. I did daily workouts on YouTube that were Pilates based. So basically my workouts from December 2016, 28th of December, that was when my appointment was, up until around Valentine's Day in 2017, consisted of Pilates. I then saw another osteopath in January that I actually knew from when I ran a health club in the Barbican in London years ago. And he's been an osteopath for 25 years. And I went to see him for sort of a second opinion. And I was doing some work, some consulting work with him and his business partner in his new business. So I did some work for them and they did some treatment for me sort of in return. And well, the cracks that he got out of me were ridiculous. And I remember him cracking, he went to me, do you have pain there? And just put his finger there. And I went, ah! And with that, he cracked my head and there was like a clear sort of fog erased from my shoulders that I didn't even actually know existed. But I remember it was from that day on, I was painless and I never experienced pain in my spine again. But his advice to me was, you're not to do any impact training for another month. Continue seeing your osteopath in St Albans that you've been seeing for all of this time. And I remember I started training properly it was around the 19th of February was when I was allowed to bring impact training back into my life. So if you think from November to February, I didn't do any impact. Now, one of the key factors as well with all of this is that my weight was quite low. The information is something like for every kilo of weight that you carry, you put 7 pounds of force through a joint or something like that. So for me, with a damaged spine, it was really important that I kept my weight low because that was what enabled me to recover so quickly, which was also really, really important. So this sort of carried on for the next few months and I had my MRI scan on the 24th of April 2017. Now, bearing in mind I've been training properly since February and I felt a lot better by that point. But I just wanted to know what it was and if it was still there. Because with the whole MRI thing, there's two ways of looking at this. As a fitness professional that has been training, I've run 2 marathons, I've done various different triathlons, I've done a Tough Mudder, I've done Beachbody programs for 5 years, I lift weights, I've put my body through a lot of stress over a 20-year period. I know up here that there is going to be some degeneration in my body. And it was a case of, do I want to know that there is degeneration in my spine or not? Because part of me thought that if I knew about it, I might be of the mindset of, oh my God, I have a slipped disc. I basically can't move and I basically can't do anything. So I battled for quite a long time of whether I'd actually go for that MRI scan or not, which eventually I did. The results came back however many weeks later, And it confirmed that the injury that I'd experienced was a protruding disc in my L5-S1 in my spine, which is basically a slip disc in my lower spine. So where are we now? We are 14 months on from the date that I've done it. I've really adapted my training since that day. For example, I don't squat with a barbell on my back because it will compress my spine at the top, which then puts pressure further down, and I just can't do that for a good 18 months after the day that I've done it. So I'm not far away from being able to start all of that again. I don't deadlift properly. If there are any moves within workouts that require deadlifts, up here I can lift a certain weight, but actually my sensible head goes, no, do the motion of a deadlift, but either do it with no weights or lift ridiculously light weights. There are certain moves that I just won't do. I will never in my life again do the low squat to a hop, because that was what did it for me in the first place. I know that my body wasn't in the right condition to do that move properly in the first place, but I just won't do that move again. There's various twisting moves that I just won't do because I know my back is vulnerable. So I have to be very careful, and I have to be very sensible in what I do. Some bent over row moves are a no for me. If my back's feeling good, I might give them a try, again with light weights. But I have to modify and choose alternatives. There's always alternatives. Upright rows are fine. They're no problem, and I'll do that with weights. Shoulder press. There's other back moves that I can do, pull-ups, TRX movements. So it's not the be-all and end-all, but certainly until the end of May this year, when it hits the 18-month period since I actually did that injury, I'm not going to even try some of those moves as I would have done before. Reason I wanted to share that post, as I said at the beginning, is because some people might do something like that and think, I have to stay still, I can't move, all of the things that I enjoy doing are a no-no. But actually, it's really important that you do keep moving, and this is the medical advice you'll get from the osteopath as well. Don't do certain moves. Don't do things that are going to compromise, but be sensible and do your research and do the exercises that will help you recover. Because as we all know, if you sit still and don't do anything for long periods of time, your body goes into spasm and seizes up because it's just not moving. So there is a way, there is always a way. And I will always now in the morning get up 10 minutes earlier than I did before and take that time to do my mobilizers, to loosen myself up properly before I have my training session in the morning. And I will always stretch properly afterwards, because I don't ever want to put myself in that position again. It was probably, I would say actually, it was more painful than labour. So I don't want to put myself in that position again, and I will always do the things that I know I can do to be sensible with that injury. But from a positivity point of view, I think positivity is definitely the way forward. You have to keep your mind in a positive mindset rather than I can't do this mindset, because the minute you say you can't do this, then you won't do this. And there's always a way, there's always help, and if you're getting the right help from the right professionals within the industry, and take their guidance and support, there is always a way. And really, just to sort of finish on that, don't ever do anything that against what a medical professional says in these sorts of scenarios, because you know, you don't want to set yourself up to hurt yourself more. But I was very lucky that I had an osteopath that had known me throughout my fitness career. She knew what my boundaries were, she knew what my abilities were, and she guided me on what I could and couldn't do based on her knowledge of me as an individual, what she knew of my history. So and I followed her advice, and I did all of the sessions that she said that I could do to help myself recover. And I knew within myself that that was the right thing to do for my own sanity as well. So there's always a way, and I just wanted to share with you guys how I came back and how I recovered from that. So I hope you found that helpful. Thanks. Bye.